Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here, Yeehaw, and today we are doing our Sableye tier list because it's Monday, and on Mondays we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays we wear pink.
Hey, can I bring Anne?
Who?
Anne. You know, she's the girl I'm kind of hanging out with.
I haven't met Anne.
Yes, you have.
Michael had met Anne.
Let her in. That's her right over there.
Oh, Anne. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Anne.
I know Anne. Hey, you.
Okay, let's start with Oinkalone. Obviously a 10 out of 10. What a Pokemon. I kid. In today's tier list, I'm going to rate every single Pokemon in the game. This isn't a fully competitive tier list. It's not a fully solo queue tier list. This is a general look at what's going on inside of Pokemon Unite right now. And I did say it was a Sableye tier list. Let me take a look at our tiers today. We have our God tier, where only one Pokemon will reside. We're not frickin' Norse around here. We've got our S tier, the Silly Billy tier. These are Pokemon that are crazy good and kind of broken. We have our A+ Teacher's Pet tier. We have our A freaking good Pokemon tier. The A+ and A tier are both very, very good choices. We have our B tier. Still got the B tier, so if there's one thing I'm thankful for, it's not that. We have our C tier, the Connie, Stop This. These are Pokemon that I don't really love. They're just kind of in a weird spot in the game right now. And then we have our Decidueye Memorial tier, a tier for Pokemon that are just in the roughest of spots. When Decidueye first came out, it was in the roughest of spots, and now the tier is named after Decidueye. Let's start. I've never started a tier list like this, but I'm going to. Sableye is our God tier Pokemon of the week, and it actually influences our entire tier list, so I'm not even going to dance around the subject at all. I'm going to put it up in the God tier. Let's talk about it really quick. Sableye has what seems to be an infinite amount of crowd control. You fear the enemy with your boosted, and then you turn invisible again, then you fear them again, then you stun them with your Confuse Ray, then you turn invisible again. Like, this Pokemon is so insane. When I first started playing it, I thought, wow, this is pretty good, but not great. It's fine, right? And then I found the right moveset and I thought, ooh, this is actually really good. Maybe not too insane, but really good. And then you realize what you can do with this between invading, shutting down their carry, stealing some objectives with a Confuse Ray and stuff like that. I mean, this Pokemon is absurd. It's absurd. I cannot wait for it to get nerfed. It's interesting because they've released broken Pokemon before, but this Pokemon, if your team has a good one and the enemy team doesn't, you are in such good shape, and vice versa. It reminds me of when you would see Mime on the other team, and your team didn't have a Mime, and you thought, this is going to be really brutal. And if someone is a good Sableye, they just make the entire match about all the things that they can do. I think this Pokemon is crazy, and it is meta-defining. That's why I'm putting it right at the top. I just want to talk about it that way because I do think everything on this list is affected by Sableye. Let's start here. Where to even begin? Okay, let's take a look at a Pokemon like, alright, I'll just do Cinderace. I think Cinderace is either A or B. Sableye kind of makes it B, honestly. Here's the thing. Against these squishier attack damage Pokemon like Cinderace, Greninja, Decidueye, Sableye is really, really mean. It just appears right behind them. It stuns them long enough, basically, when you're one of these squishy Pokemon. The fear and the confusion and the fear again lasts long enough for anyone to easily take this Pokemon out. Maybe Sableye by itself. So you're in this weird spot. Like, is Cinderace good? Kinda, but it's not really good into Sableye at all, in my opinion. It kind of gets dominated by it. At least it has some mobility. It still is a pretty solid carry. I'm gonna put it A. That might even be too kind for where Cinderace is. Honestly, I'm gonna put it B. And this is only because of Sableye. Without Sableye existing, I think Cinderace is better than this, but it's just such a liability into this Pokemon. While we're talking about it, I think Greninja actually edges out Cinderace here a little bit. Here's my thought process. So, both these Pokemon, good, solid carries. I think between Greninja's ability to turn invisible itself and Greninja's ability to have Surf or Water Shuriken, which can more easily hit Sableye even though it's invisible, I think Greninja does a better chance against Sableye than Cinderace does. So for that reason, I would put it here in the A tier. Still a good Pokemon, a bit of a liability, and boy, if as a Sableye, when you're playing Sableye and you see Greninja as Cinderace on the enemy team, just lick your lips because you have beautiful lips. No, but lick your lips because you're just gonna be eating good tonight. It's so good. And now we're gonna do something that I can't believe I have to do, but I do. Decidueye is returning to the Decidueye Memorial tier. I know. Decidueye is so unbelievably bad into this Pokemon, it's laughable. It's laughable how bad Decidueye is. At least Cinderace and Greninja both have some element of mobility. A few things I'll say. Decidueye can kind of catch it out with its mobility move from time to time, so you can find it sometimes. You could, in theory, hit it with some Razor Leafs or a Spirit Shackle. The thing about it, though, is if you have Razor Leaf and, oh man, this Sableye hits you with a Confuse Ray, I have had enemy Decidueye just start ripping their own team to shreds. I think Decidueye is one of the worst Pokemon into Sableye right now. I really do. Decidueye by itself, horrible. If you're on a team and you have good peel, you've got Pokemon, you know, like Snorlax and Slowbro, and there are things around that can sort of block for you and make things happen, okay, fair enough. But in general, you are a sitting duck. Just one of the worst situations you could be in is Decidueye into a Sableye. The eyes, when trainers' eyes meet, they must battle. All right, let's see. Where to go? We're in the attackers right now, right? Let's talk about Venusaur. I think Venusaur is very good. Probably A+ when you look at what's going on right here. So not too bad into Sableye. It getting confused isn't the end of the world. You can hit a Giga Drain on an invisible Sableye pretty easily, and a lot of other Pokemon, obviously. It gives you defenses long enough to sort of not freak out. Also, even if you get hit by fear, you've still got your Petal Dance going and things like that. So I think Petal Dance Giga Drain Venusaur actually is not doing too bad into this current meta. It's not the greatest thing, but I don't think it's the end of the world if you're running this into, you know, a meanie like Sableye right now. Let's see. And by the way, I talk so much about Sableye because in a couple days, it's going to be coins unlocked. Right now it's gem locked, and once it's coins unlocked, you're going to see it in tons of games, so get ready. Where's our next attacker? Cram. Cram's fine. Cram is fine. Yeah, I have to put it B. I feel like Cramorant's fine right now. You've got some really nice mobility with Dive and Air Slash. It's not the worst thing if Sableye runs into you, but it's also, there are other Pokemon in the game. I'm comparing a lot of things to Sableye right now, but as this list starts to get bigger and bigger, we'll talk about some other Pokemon. Once we get into the all-rounders especially, I feel like Pokemon like Cram just aren't amazing into what's happening in the meta right now, which is, you know, pretty tanky Pokemon, and then Sableye. That's what I've noticed. You got these big tanky Pokemon like Tyranitar, things like that, and they're usually held up by a support like a Blissey or a Mime or something like that, still around, still very dominant, and then you've got Sableye just making everyone's life miserable. So I don't think Cram performs particularly well into that. It's not terrible though. B tier, I think is fine. Another attacker here. Pikachu is not doing too well. Pikachu might even be right down there. Honestly, it's a little better, I think, than Decidueye in some ways, as crazy as that sounds, but it's not doing well. I don't think Pikachu does well into this Pokemon. I also don't think I think it doesn't do well into a lot of the real tanky enemies. The good thing about this is it does have nice stuns, so at least that's positive. There's an element of support there. You know, if you could see the target you want, you can Volt Tackle them, you can Thunderbolt them. Its Unite move can help you take out individual targets, and also if you put a Buddy Barrier on it, you're at least Buddy Barriering an ally a lot of the time. I think Pikachu is not in a great spot, hasn't been in a great spot in a while. It's close to D. Honestly, it's close to D, especially dealing with Sableye. It's mean. Gardevoir. Gardevoir, I'm going to cautiously put it B, but it might be closer to C. Here's the thing. Gardevoir got some nice buffs. It's actually gotten some nice buffs a few patches in a row. It doesn't fare particularly well into Sableye, but it does do a lot of burst damage, and that can be pretty nice, you know, against really anything inside the game. It's a very, very strong mage. It's better early now, and actually, if you get stuck playing it in lane or path, as the game calls it, you're not completely dead. Its confusion's a little bit better, and now you hit level 5, and you're strong. You're strong. I don't love it, but I also am cautiously optimistic about where it could go. And its Unite moves on a lower cooldown. So I think everything's, sorry microphone, I think everything's looking good for Gardevoir, but watch out, gamers. I don't know. We'll see how high it goes. Sylveon I actually think is probably A+ right now. A or A+. So A+ might be a little high, but both Hyper Voice and Mystical Fire are good. This fares actually pretty well into Sableye because it is tanky. It's a surprisingly tanky Pokemon, and it's not too hard to hit everything you need to hit with it. It gets good at level 4, which is pretty awesome. And now that I think both builds are solid for Sylveon, I actually think it's in a really good place right now. No matter what build you play with it, it's really good. And there's something about this Mystical Fire Draining Kiss build, especially when you're going up against these Pokemon like some of the brawling all-rounders or something like Sableye. You actually can hold your own for a while, and that is what they do not want. They do not want you to hold your own. They want you to go away. Go bye-bye. Let's see. Our next attacker is Duraludon. It's either A+ or S. I'm going to put it S right now. So Duraludon's been great for a long time. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've been singing its praises. I think the thing that makes Duraludon so good right now, not only is its win rate really, really high, it's just its rip is really good. Apparently there was a nerf to this Pokemon. I don't know. It felt like this Pokemon's doing better than ever. So I can't really see exactly what happened with that, but I just think this is nice. It's nice into a Sableye because if you hit it with a few things of Dragon Pulse, you can get a KO on it sometimes. Also, its mobility is, in some ways, I like its mobility even better than Greninja or Cinderace, because what happens is something comes close to you and you Dragon Tail away from it, but at the same time you hit them and you knock them up. Its Unite move is great, and it rips objective and secures things so well. It's either A+ or S. S might be a little high, but it's one of these two. It's either A+ or S. Right now I'm going to leave it S. We'll see if I move that around. I rarely do. Espeon. Espeon's B. Yeah. Espeon's B. I actually like it better than Cram right now. If I were ordering these, it would be closer to this. I like it better than Cram. I think stored power is still not there. It's just not the build right now, but I do think Psyshock is pretty dang good. It's a lot of damage, and it's a really nice stun. It still needs a little bit more. I think if it was invulnerable in its Unite move, kind of like Mew, I think it would maybe be one of the better attackers in the game, especially for a mage, but right now I would say it's fine. Espeon's doing pretty good. Pokemon I love to play, by the way. Delphox. Delphox is A+. So good. One build, though. Flame Charge, Mystical Fire. Everything else is shades of all right, but Flame Charge, Mystical Fire is the build. The resets, the movement, it's pretty insane. The Unite move's incredible. I think it's one of the best junglers in the game. Really, really good. The only thing I think holding it back is just, boy, you just don't want to, a lot of Pokemon really don't want to deal with Sableye, and especially if you're in jungle early as Delphox, good luck, because that thing can come in and invade you and just make your life an absolute nightmare. So good luck. Glaceon. Glaceon's either A+ or, yeah, I'd say Glaceon's A+. I actually think both builds are really good. I think Icicle Spear pretty good into, Sableye. I think Icy Wind also good into Sableye, but Icy Wind just does insane amounts of damage. I don't think Glaceon's fallen off much at all. I think it's still a really, really good choice. A super solid carry Pokemon. I think it's really good, and unlike Sylveon, it doesn't get really good at level 4. It kind of actually starts to get good maybe closer to 6 or 8. But even still, it's a solid Pokemon, especially if you can give it some buffs. It looks really nice. The jungle buffs is what I'm talking about. Not literally buff it. It's fine. Don't buff it. Mew. Here's the thing with Mew. It's probably still A+. Probably. It feels like the nerfs are pretty solid, but the biggest thing is I just see a lot less people playing it. So I think the days of Mew being this unbelievable solo duo presence might be a little behind us, even though I think it's probably still really, really great. People just aren't playing it that much. I think it just is, it's not S, but it's still insane. It's probably A+. It's either A or A+, but I do kind of feel like maybe it's just that you see it less. Maybe it's all the good Mew players have moved on. But I think this Pokemon is in a much better spot than it was for the game's health, because I think it was crazy broken. It's either A or A+ still, though. It's a really good Pokemon. Let's see. Who else? What other attackers do we have? Is that everybody? I think those are all of our attackers. I'm sure. Oh, Ninetales. I missed you, buddy. Sorry about that. Ninetales, I'd say, is B. Yeah, it's B. It's actually, it feels better than Pikachu. It feels a little bit better. I think part of it is that the lanes haven't felt as hard. You know, Mime and Mew both got some nerfs, so I think that helps. And I don't know. I mean, the Veil is pretty good with this Pokemon, especially near the end of the game. It can get some pretty good stuns. In general, though, it just feels like it's not one of the Pokemon you want at the end, and that's the unfortunate thing about it. But it's pretty solid in lane, like really, really solid lane Pokemon. I like it. I'm going to put it there in B. I'm going to put it B. I don't know if I missed anybody. If I did, I'll find them at some point and have to apologize. Let's talk about the all-rounders, because I've been talking about the all-rounders a bit here, and I think it's important to start going through some of them here. We'll start with Machamp. I don't love Machamp right now. I haven't loved Machamp in a while. I don't think it's terrible or anything, but I'm really not impressed with this Pokemon right now. Not saying it's bad. Everything in the B tier is super playable. It's not like you're griefing or anything if you're using it. I just don't feel like it's the difference maker it used to be. Machamp used to feel like quite a bit of a difference maker. So, it's alright. It's alright. Don't love it. Lucario, I think, is still really good. Probably A or A+. People act like Lucario's fallen off, and it has, because it was completely broken. But it's still great. I think Lucario is still really great. I'll probably put it A for now. I think I'll put it A. My A+ and A. I mean, all of these are very, very close to each other, but for different reasons, I have my A+ a little bit higher. Greninja, Mew, and Lucario are all good enough kind of to be considered up in this category here, but there are just things that these do that I think are a little bit better outside of full coordinated play. Full coordinated play, you'd actually probably flip-flop these two right here, which is interesting, but that's not really how 99% of the population of this game plays it. So let's see, we've got ourselves another all-rounder. Where you at? Charizard's A+ for sure. Char's amazing. Its Unite move's amazing. It's good throughout the whole game. You can play it jungle or path. It does better in jungle because you want the experience. If you can get level 9 by the 7-minute mark-ish, and you can fight for one of the objectives, it's pretty incredible. It rips objectives, it KOs enemies. Everything Char does is good. It's great. I love Char. A+ for sure. And it's one of the tough Pokemon to deal with for a lot of, like, all these Pokemon, honestly. Not as much Delphox or Sylveon, but Greninja a bit, Cinderace, Espeon, Gardevoir, Cram to a lesser extent, Ninetales, Decidueye, Pikachu. All of them just get absolutely dominated by a Pokemon like Charizard. It can get in on them, and it can just eat them alive. Let's see, where's our next all-rounder at? Serena is probably S, honestly. It's either A+ or S. I don't feel like it's unbelievably broken. I'm going to put it A+, but it's so good. Serena's so good. Nothing. Sorry, Mike. I'm really hitting my mic today, guys. It's just amazing. I think you could play Triple Axle or Stomp. I personally have always preferred Stomp. I just like burst damage. So for me, the big thing is, can you burst enough damage to get something gone, and then you don't have to deal with it anymore? I don't want a prolonged fight. I want everything to be gone very, very fast. And I think Zarina with Stomp does that super well. But there are a lot of people playing Triple Axle right now, and they're having great success. I think a lot of the time, too, if you have a support that can heal you, Triple Axle, you know, you're kind of setting up this amazing bit of a combo there between healing and your natural healing that you get from Triple Axle and your shielding, and then you've got a support helping you. So I think Triple Axle works really well with that. Let's see, our next all-rounder here is Dragonite. I'm not in love with Dragonite. I haven't really been vibing on Dragonite for a while. Even though the game's gotten a little more flippy and it feels like Ray is more important, it just doesn't even feel like Dragonite flips it that well with Hyper Beam. Because of its range, it just doesn't feel like Dragonite's in the best position in this game right now. Yeah, I don't love it. Honestly, I don't love it. I don't love either build on it right now. Maybe with some of the new items coming, we could see some really cool stuff happening with Outrage. Like, stay tuned for that, but we'll see. We will see. Aegislash, I think still pretty good. I think A or A+. It's definitely got nerfed a bit, but, you know, Aegislash still has incredible strength with its boosteds. It secures KOs, and it secures objectives, and it's really hard for a Pokemon that has an amazing objective secure with multiple moves, or I guess multiple attacks, I should say, because one of them is its boosted attack. It's really hard for that Pokemon to fall off too hard. So I think it's still a really, really solid Pokemon, but probably near the bottom of the A tier for me. And the build you'd be running, I think, is the Sacred Sword build. I think it's a more solid build. Azu, I think, is A. It's either A or A+. So here's the thing. The only issue I have with Azumarill is I feel like it kind of falls off late game. And yes, I recognize that I'm very biased to Azumarill because of Water Pulse Plus, one of my favorite moves in the entire game. But I feel like when you come to the end of the game, there are Pokemon that just carry a lot harder. Carry being, you know, taking out multiple members of the enemy team, doing tons of damage. I feel like it's just, maybe it's not tanky enough. Maybe there's just not a lot of damage near the end. It just feels like right near the end, it's not as amazing as it was throughout the rest of the match. However, early and mid, I think this Pokemon's great. In general, I think A is a fair place to put it right now. I think it's doing really well. Buzzwole. I hate to say it, but it doesn't have a solid place in the game currently, and its win rate has never improved. I really love playing this Pokemon, but man, it just feels like, what it does really well is early, it feels like it can steamroll really hard. But boy, near the end, it feels like you've got to get a good catch, a really good catch on a member of the enemy team. Otherwise, you're just not that useful. Not useless or anything. Maybe it's closer to B, maybe, but unfortunately, given that this Pokemon just can't seem to win, it's really hard for me to say that it's any better than this. It needs some help. It just doesn't do anything so well that you want it on your team badly. Tyranitar, S. I think Tyranitar's S. So I've been going back and forth on Tyranitar for a long time. And I think the thing about it is, with Rayquaza being so much more important, this Pokemon is one of the best late game, like truly a late game monstrous choice, especially if it has a support with it. And I feel like it kind of clutches up things more than pretty much anyone in the game. One of the most difficult things to deal with. It also defends goals better than essentially anyone in the game. It just, as the match progresses, it's hard to say that any Pokemon is better. That's one of the tough things. And for me, that brings it up to the S tier right now. I think it's so incredibly good. We got Scizor. Scizor I actually think is doing pretty good. I'd say it's probably A. It's solid. It like all these all-rounders in here, I think are all really solid. You know, Lucario, Scizor, Azumarill, all these are really good picks. It's a really solid pick. I think it brawls really, really well. I think it is outdone by both Charizard and Serena here, but I think it brawls really well. And now let's talk about something that I don't know what to do with this. And I've been thinking about this, and I thought, okay, what I'm talking about right now is Garchomp. So I've been thinking about Garchomp, right? Garchomp got some buffs, and it's better. And there are other things in the game that are actually helping Garchomp out a little bit. One thing that's hurting Garchomp somewhat is Sableye, because if you hit a Confuse Ray on an enemy Garchomp, it just starts slashing everyone on the enemy. It's the best feeling. Oh, it's the best feeling. But Garchomp actually is brawling really well inside the game right now. It feels like the buffs they gave it didn't seem like they were going to be that intense, but it's actually brawling well, and its win rate just keeps going up, or at least it's still really solid, over 50%. I actually think for the first time ever, I'm going to put Garchomp up in the A tier. I think it's actually performing pretty well inside this meta. It's pretty tanky, and it's doing a lot of damage, and I'm really interested to see what happens when that new item Drain Crown hits and it starts getting even more lifesteal. It's just, I don't know. This Pokemon's kind of doing it right now. And I'm pleasantly surprised with Garchomp. Let me know what you think in the comments about that. Maybe I'm just out of line here, but I actually think Garchomp's doing pretty good in this game right now. Is there another all-rounder I missed? And there's like 8,000 all-rounders in this game. Let's move on to, let's do Speedsters, because I think that might be interesting. Gengar I still think is really good, but I actually think when you run into tankier Pokemon, it loses value. I still think, like solo, I still think this is either A+ or S if you're playing solo on Gengar. I really do think so. But in most all other situations, I think it might be closer to like high A. So here's what's going on. The Hex nerf I actually think is, the range on it I think is pretty considerable. And I think what happens when the meta starts to shift and you see like squishier Pokemon get less and less play, Gengar loses more and more value. Trying to KO Zarina, Tyranitar, Garchomp, like tanky Pokemon, and some defenders and supporters we'll talk about soon. Trying to KO those with a Gengar is tough unless you're way over leveled. So I think because of that, like if you're only solo, it's probably definitely up here in the A+. But anything else, I think maybe a little closer to A. It still has a delete button, but when the meta is tankier, that hurts it. And Sableye, I think, is a great Gengar counter. Basically, if you could stop Gengar for a couple seconds from doing what it wants to do, it's kind of over. So Sableye really hurts this Pokemon, I think. Talon. Talon's great. No one plays it well. I swear it's the worst played Pokemon in the entire game. Every Talon on your team is going to ruin your life. That being said, Talon is really good. In fact, Talon's actually pretty good into Sableye because it can avoid a lot of what Sableye wants to do. Fly is amazing. I think Brave Bird still isn't really it, but I think Talon's really good. I just think it's criminally, the way people play it, they should go to jail for 6 months. It's just played so poorly. It's always backcapping and not doing anything. It actually fights really well. Absol, really good. Absol's either A. Yeah, Absol's A. I mean, it's still really good. It does a lot of damage. It might get hurt a little bit more. Like, I feel like you could say maybe, but B is just too low for it. A, I think, is totally fair. It's a really good Pokemon. Because I can't make an argument that it should be in B. I really can't. It's so good. Dodrio. It got nerfed, but it's still amazing. I'm going to say A+. I don't think it's S. I do think there were times where you could argue that Dodrio was S, but I think with the nerfs and things like that, they're tuning it back enough. It's still a great Pokemon. You could still make some amazing plays with it, but they really did pull back some of the damage a bit. So I would say A+, and that maybe it's just even high A, but it's still a very solid Pokemon. Zeraora. Zeraora's Wild Charge is the only thing I think that is solid on this Pokemon right now compared to, I mean, the thing I think about Zeraora is where do you, there isn't really any Pokemon I can't think of who I'd go, oh no, get rid of that Pokemon, put in Zeraora instead. Maybe if they fix its leveling, everything changes about this, but I don't like Zeraora right now. I like it, but I don't know. It's either D or C. It's just so, the leveling is so bad. I'm going to put it C only because of Wild Charge, because Wild Charge actually plays pretty good into Sableye. But besides that, I just, no, Zeraora, no. You might even be D. I mean, I might be being too kind to you by putting you in C. It just, no. Zoroark. I never thought Zoroark was S. I never did. I still don't. And it got nerfed. I think A+ or A is fair. I would probably say A. I'm gonna say high A. Here's the thing about Zoroark. It already was so feast or famine. It already was. It's either you hit your combo or you don't. Early, this Pokemon's great. Late, I really don't think it's that good. And especially moving into a late game fight with Sableye, I think this Pokemon is pretty tragic, in my opinion. In the late game fight. But it's still an A tier, or even maybe A+ if played well. It's not a terrible Pokemon. I just never thought this Pokemon was completely broken. And I still think it's really good, especially early and mid. But it just, the late game fight, I feel like this is just such a woof. I can't think of too many Pokemon I would rather. I'm doing it again. I can't think of too many Pokemon that I would rather not switch this with late. Like, of course you want it more than maybe Ninetales or something like that. Zeraora, maybe. I don't know. I don't love Zoroark late, but early mid, it's still an absolute beast. It's a great Pokemon. Also, Faint's rough. I know people are moving on to Faint. Sableye makes Faint and kind of Night Slash. He just makes it horrible. He just stops he just stops him. Okay. Let's move on to, let's do supporters or defenders. We'll do supporters. I think Wiggly is not too bad. I think Wiggly's actually doing okay. I think it plays well into Sableye too. I'm going to put it A for the first time in a while. I think Wiggly's actually playing all right now. I was playing it a little bit earlier. I think the thing about Wiggly is it's really tanky, and it just is a great front line for things like a Sableye. And because of that, you could set up some really nice stuff for your team. You kind of need something to sort of block. You need that bulk. You need that help. A might be a little high. Maybe it's closer to B. We'll see. Maybe it's closer to B. Slowbro. I think Slowbro is doing really good right now. Slowbro is also probably A. Super solid. Good damage. Tanky. Really nice. Doesn't play particularly amazing in a Sableye, but it's so bulky, Sableye can't really hurt it too much, so that's really positive. Let's see. I just did supporters into defenders. I'm dumb. Well, I'll keep you up there. Sorry, I'm just thinking tanks. My brain's like tank. Eldegoss I actually think is probably A+ right now. Eldegoss is really good. I think the healing that you get out of Pollen Puff, it's weird because Pollen Puff kind of creates this, it's almost an aura where you know, like, dang, that Pokemon's gonna get healed, and if I'm near it, I'm gonna take damage. Or if it lands on you, enemies can jump into you and fight you and more confidently do that because they're going to get healed. So that's pretty solid. Leaf Tornado's always been a really good move. The shielding is even better now. Its Unite move is pretty solid. Heals the team, pushes everyone around, can secure objectives. Eldegoss also really mean in lane early. I like it right now. Really strong. I still think Mime's probably an S tier Pokemon. Even with everything they've done, it's just a tank that still deals insane damage with a crazy good Unite move, and it's great. I think Mime's just great. Hard to say it's not one of the better Pokemon in the entire game, and isn't too bad into this little monster right here. Blissey, I think, is... So, okay. If you are playing with a good Blissey and you're a tanky enough Pokemon to take advantage of it, your life is going to be great. If you're Tyranitar, Zarina, Charizard, Machamp, Garchomp probably, Aegislash, maybe a little close to Azumarill. Like, if you're a tanky Pokemon that can live long enough for multiple eggs to heal you, life is so good with a Blissey on your team. So... I think Blissey's gone up and down a little bit as of late, but still, depending on the team comp, I think it's great. Now, if your team is, whatever, Dodrio, Espeon, Pikachu, Cinderace, and Blissey, I don't think that's very solid at all. So this Pokemon, like any support, is pretty team dependent, you know? But given that, I actually think it's a really solid supporter if you're looking for something to actually heal and help your team. Hoopa's better probably than its win rate shows, but it doesn't have the same viability on this map, I think, at all. I really don't. I just don't think it's... The things that Hoopa used to... It just doesn't even feel that necessary to port people around. Also, for whatever reason, I was playing Hoopa the other day. No one takes your portals anymore. I guess nobody even knows what your Unite move does anymore. I think B is a fair place for this, maybe even a little too fair, but it's actually really good early, too. So, I think it's pretty solid. Clefable. Alright, here's the thing about Clefable. I'm going to put it B, but this is B with a capital but. I think this Pokemon is actually better than its win rate shows. I think its buffs were nice. However, like Blissey, this one's even more team dependent. It's probably still going to need another round of slight buffs to make it, really, really good. But if you're a Blissey, if you're a Clefable, I'm already talking about the better one. If you're a Clefable and you're following around tanks and you're keeping them alive, you're doing great. And I also think Follow Me is kind of nice, and it's kind of nice into Sableye right now. You can sort of dash around and find it somewhat, and you have a big shield there. So right now I'm playing Moonlight and Follow Me, and I kind of like that build. Gravity is good, but there just aren't a lot of Pokemon that you worry about with Gravity right now. So Gravity is great against Zoroark, it's great against E-Speed Lucario, it's great against Scissor, it's great against, kind of good against Absol, Zeraora-ish, Dragonite a little bit. There are a lot of Pokemon it's great against, but I feel like you're not seeing them as much as you used to. So in general, I think this Pokemon is good, but kind of outshined by Blissey. It's interesting, like Hoopa is outshined by Eldy, and I think Clefable outshined by Blissey. And those are our supporters. Let's move on to our defenders. I accidentally already did one with Slowbro. Crustle. Crustle's B. Better than B solo, worse than B in any other sense. I think the big thing with Crustle is it can carry with X-Scissor and its critical hits. It also can do some really nice stuff with Rock Tomb, but I do think most of the time one of the other defenders just happens to provide a little more utility. I really like it in the game right now, but I don't think it's as good as some of the others. Snorlax, I think, is A. A or A+. As far as a defender is concerned, if you're just like really trying to peel for your team, I think it's pretty amazing. Maybe as high as A+ at times. It's really good. It's one of these two. And you kind of have to compare defenders against each other, right? You can't really say, well, Slowbro doesn't do the kind of damage that Tyranitar does. Well, obviously. But I think it's really solid. If you play well, you could protect your team from something like a Sableye with it. I think A is probably a pretty fair place. Blastoise. B for Blastoise. I like Blastoise, but yeah, it's fine. Takes a long time to get online, it feels like. The big unfortunate thing with this Pokemon, maybe they just need to shift its leveling back as well. Like, make it a 4 and an 8 or something like that. It just takes so long for it to get its moves, get online. As a defender, it's fine early. It's nice that it has a ranged attack, but it's not that great. I think it's all right. Here's one that might shock you. I think Mamo is A+. Mamo is great. Mamo is so good right now. I love seeing Mamo doing so well. I think it's like the best defender in the game in a lot of ways. Snorlax kind of beats it out in some respects, and Slowbro has an amazing Unite move, but man, this Pokemon just feels like it's good all the time. It feels like it's good all the time. It's not too stressed out by Sableye, but if Sableye is at level 12 and hits you with that Confuse Ray, and then you start auto-attacking your own team and freezing them, that can be pretty brutal. But I think in general, Mamo is just crushing it right now. Greedent, this is the first time I'm going to put Greedent this low, which is A. The thing about Greedent is it's kind of got its job taken by Sableye a little bit. Sableye invades really well, it steals really well, it disrupts the enemy really well, and it's invisible. I actually think it's weird to think that Sableye and Greedent are kind of competing for the same role, but it's this sort of heavy, harassing style gameplay, and I actually think Sableye really... It knocks Greedent down a peg, but Greedent's still really tanky and strong and good. It kind of loses its job a bit. And then we have Trevenant, who I've really liked for a while. I still think Trevenant's really solid. I think, as you can see, this is interesting, but a lot of the tanks I think are doing really well in the game right now, especially when you're dealing with a meta where you don't want to be so squishy that getting a hit with a chunk of crowd control effect from something like a Sableye is going to ruin your day. And that's what you're kind of seeing on this list. The reason I wanted to put Sableye up top early was just so I could talk about how I think this Pokemon really affects the entire meta of the game, and there are Pokemon doing really well and really poorly because of it. I think Duraludon's probably high here. It's the lowest of these three, and it could probably be moved down to the A+ right here, to be fair. I just doing a once over, so I do my lists and then I record and I put that kind of list up, but I talk through it as I do it. So I do a rough outline, I talk through it, and I'm just like looking at it again to see if there's anything I really disagree with. There isn't too much that I think I would switch around here. Again, maybe Mew is a little higher. I think most all of this is about where I'd place it. Maybe Sylvie is a little high. Maybe. But this is about where I'm seeing the game right now. I honestly think Garchomp's doing really good inside this meta currently. Talon, again, amazing. It's just nobody knows how to play Talon. All right, Yeah, I think that's good. Here we go. This is the first time that I've ever seen Garchomp this good, and of course part of that is because it actually deals with Sableye really well. If you're next to Sableye, you just rip it to shreds in 2 seconds. And then of course we have Zeraora, who is the Sableye counter, making it up to the S tier right now. Tyranitar also, of course, an incredibly good Sableye counter. And then all the Pokemon that are just kind of destroyed right now: Buzzwole, Slowbro, Yuck, Trevenant does nothing currently, and Ninetales, of course, has been bad for a long time. Scizor is just completely destroyed, only because you're looking at it compared to Garchomp, and Garchomp just makes it look like a fool. Mime got a lot worse, but it's still really good. It's still an A tier Pokemon, so I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'm going to be gone for a few days for the holiday, but I'll have plenty of stuff coming up here on my channel. I love you all, and I'll see you soon. Mwah.